guys. I'm here today with Mark Strough. He's got a fantastic Facebook page. It's all about kind of like bodybuilding, ketogenic diet, carnivore diet, that sort of thing. And he's got some interesting approaches towards training, which we're going to probably touch on today. But first, I want to ask Mark about how he got to the carnivore diet and why is it that he needs to make such a drastic change? I know a lot of people that come into the diet in maybe like the nutrition sort of space, they often have a lot of like severe health issues that just can't be removed from the ketogenic diet or any other diet. So what happened there, Mark?
Well, I've had three iterations of the carnivore way of eating. And the first one I got into when I was actually 1987, I was 18. And it kind of came about in two areas that you wouldn't think be connected. I have a passion for music, and one of the bands that I liked was Grateful Dead, and their sound guy, Bear Osley Stanley, was a carnivore. And I think there were some articles, Mother Earth News. I think even Rolling Stone had an article about how he had eaten the carnivore way since the 1950s. And, that piqued my interest. But one of the earliest things, I started lifting weights. I don't know about correctly, but when I was about 10 and did my first little DP weight set, and I got a Perry Reader book and Vince Gironda. And Iron Man was out. And there were some other different magazines that were coming out. And so Vince Gironda, which this was before the age of steroids, so they're all natural. And their training approach was more set for somebody just starting out, I guess, in a lot of ways too. But he was Mr. Steak and Eggs, and I was the scrawny kid. I was strong, but I never could put on mass at that age, especially. And so when I was in college, I was wanting to get stronger, get bigger, and I tried everything. I was doing all the carbs, all the raw eggs and orange juice and everything like that, and everything, the standard thing. We really didn't have protein shakes per se. I mean, they were on the scenes, but I didn't have access to them back then, and the supplements weren't really a thing back then either. So, any advantage you could get, you're wanting to get. And so I thought, hey, I'm going to give that a try. And it worked great. I didn't put on a ton of mass, but I increased strength quite a bit. And then some of my lifting coaches convinced me that I would die from lack of vitamin C, and I'd get scurvy. And so that ended that. So I did that probably for about 9 months or so, and it worked great. Had no idea it had any application later in my life or for any health. Then in 2014, after I'd suffered an accident, I won't go into all this, but I had suffered a logging accident in 2009, required major surgery in 2011. And my health declined. My body fat went up. I was not even able to train effectively. Health was just getting really bad at that point. And then we have a large farm, and I had a farming accident, suffered a major concussion. And then right after that, I was teaching martial arts class, and this was partly due to me being out of condition and overweight at that point. I was teaching a kids class, and we're going through some Muay Thai kickboxing, and I just landed my foot from a kick, and my foot just snapped, and the left foot, and caused some major damage to the ankle. The bottom of the foot, the plantar fascialis, was just annihilated. And so I went to an orthopedic specialist, and he gave me the prognosis of this and that. And we're going to do this, this, and this. And one of my questions was, I said, would it help if I lost some weight? He said, well, you look like you're pretty healthy. You don't really look like you're overweight. Of course, in this day and age, you can be overweight and you look normal. So I said, well, doc, I can drop weight. I said, that's not a big deal. And so I went 100% carnivore. And I can't say I went 100% carnivore. Let's say I went almost 100% carnivore, because I was going from the standard American diet, not the standard American diet, but, high carbs. I still ate healthy, what I considered healthy, but it was still more the powerlifter, bodybuilding approach. I was probably doing 50 to 60% carbohydrates, very low fat, good amount of protein. But I was still, that was what I would have considered healthy at that point. So I went to meat only, and being I had made such a drastic change, I ate some fermented sauerkraut to kind of keep the gut so it wouldn't have a total rejection to this. I knew there'd be some issues with that. And I did amazing. Within just a few months, I had dropped right around 70, a little over 70 pounds. And the doc was just absolutely amazed. And I did not have to have surgery. I had to wear a cast for, I think, or a boot for like 6 months or so. And so anyway, that was how I got into it then. Again, that was just for that condition. And I was able to go back training. I had, you know, got my strength back and all that. And everything was going really good. And then social pressures kicked in. And that was kind of a very abnormal way to eat in 2014. So I kind of went more of a ketogenic way. So I added in back just some, you know, basic vegetables, some nuts, and different things like that. And anyway, my health seemed really good, fitness seemed really good, but my autoimmune issues were kicking in very, very, very badly, very badly. And I had already, you know, had been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I had psoriasis, a lot of gut issues, and I had no clue that plant toxins were even existed. I guess I'd heard of glutens, but I thought I was very health aware, but I didn't know about, you know, oxalates, phytic acids, and you know, so many different things like that. And anyway, after my rheumatoid arthritis started getting much worse, my psoriasis got much worse. I reached out to, you know, I was just doing all kinds of research, and Phil Escott was one of the guys. I think you know Phil, and Lisa Bailey, both in the UK. What a great place! Y'all helped me out so much, and they both were just so great in helping me. And they were saying, you know, hey, you're doing this right, but you may need to go 100% carnivore. And I mean, I was thinking, look, I'm already over 70, 80% carnivore now, eating maybe only a little bit of broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. You know, I wasn't eating crap. So it kind of boggled my mind that I would need to go even more strict. So, you know, I had consulted with Dr. Sean Baker, Dr. Paul Marbley, some of the early carnivore adopters, Kelly Hogan, and some of those that were out there. There were several people in the UK that I had reached out to besides Phil and Lisa. And they all were almost all the same opinion. You need to go 100%. And I even went up as high in probably 2016, 2017, around 90, 95% carnivore. Still was not getting any issues from my rheumatoid arthritis. So Dr. Baker had told me in 2017, probably the middle part, he said, we're going to do a World Carnivore Challenge in 2018. He said, I'd like you to help kick that off. So would you be interested? So I talked to my wife, and she was very supportive. I thought she was going to think I'd lost my marbles. And then she surprised me. She has IBS and had gut issues. She said, I want to give it a try too. And I thought, you don't even eat meat. You don't even like meat. And anyway, long story short, we're both still on it. 2018, we went 100% carnivore. Have not looked back. All my rheumatoid arthritis issues, they're gone. I can snap my fingers now. I have movement back. It's just been great.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, I'm hearing that more and more at the moment. So people like myself, for anyone who doesn't know, I have a somewhat lazy carnivore approach. I mean, I don't really eat plant foods at all, much, but like 99% of the nutritive value of my diet is like Mark's. But I'm thinking of trying all these things, like cutting out the very occasional coffee that I have, getting rid of the sweeteners, just to see what that does. But my biggest fear is because I've got an addictive personality, especially when it comes to food. If I then take those things out, am I going to sort of then, you know, think, oh, I need to come off it, and you have all these like mental triggers. I'm sort of going to dip in that at some point, but at the moment I'm happy where I am.
Yeah.
What happened? So obviously you're into like weight training and martial arts and things like that.
Yeah.
So have you had different goals with your body composition, and did your diet whilst being carnivore change in that regard?
No, I think, you know, early on, as I had said, I always had a problem keeping weight and muscle on. I called it high metabolism, genetics, whatever. I could always gain strength quite well, but I could not keep a lot of mass on. And my goal, I don't have the genetics to be a bodybuilder. I never wanted to be a bodybuilder. That wasn't ever my goal. I got into weight training just to add mass and strength to help with my martial arts. That was the only reason I got into it. I never wanted to be, you know, Dorian Yates or Ronnie Coleman or anybody like that. You know, that was never my goal. It was never in the cards anyway. I don't have the genetics for that, and I think that was the main reason. And I could put weight on through, you know, the typical bodybuilding or powerlifting way of eating, but it wasn't clean as what I can do now. It's so much easier. I mean, I was counting everything. I was eating, 6 to 8 meals a day. I was meal prepping. I was taking a protein shake here and then. I'm talking about, in the late 1990s, early 2000s. So yeah, I was doing this supplement, that supplement, anything. I call a lot of those supplements were like 2%ers. They may be at best 2% of any difference whatsoever. And again, if you're not doing the hard work, supplement ain't going to make any difference. And I know we might get on this later. I think most supplements are just absolute waste of money. I mean, I think it's more hype than anything, and it's like people wanting to sell them. I know there's some that may need it. If somebody is totally undernutrition, I mean, I get that they're not being nourished enough, and they may need a protein supplement or they may need something like that. But I think if you're eating in an ancestral way, primarily beef or lamb or whatever, getting eggs, you can do eggs. I mean, I don't really think you need a whole lot. I mean, I guess creatine possibly. That's been shown to help probably with more water uptake, but I find it so much easier mentally and just preparation wise too of doing a carnivore approach. I'm not tracking. I'm not counting. I'm not, okay, I've got to eat this meal at this time. Okay, I just worked out. I've got a 45-minute window to get this protein in, or it's just all for naught. And, I don't look at it that way. And and I know this probably doesn't work for everybody. I'm pretty much OMAD. I'm not tied to OMAD. I always tell people it works great for me, but I'm also lazy. So I don't want the extra, two other meals I have to prepare. Now, if I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. It may be just some eggs. It may be just a little bit of leftover beef I have. But I think you shouldn't be tied to that. I don't think OMAD is for everybody. And I think a lot of people would be much better, especially probably in a bodybuilder context. You know this much better than I would, where they do spread out the protein throughout the day more so and get maybe more optimized protein uptake and muscle protein synthesis.
Yeah, I think you made a good point there. I think a lot of people rush into these things because OMAD, it's like a catchy term, isn't it? Like OMAD
It's the
or
cool
2MAD.
thing. I know somebody that does it. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
not the reason to do it.
yeah. I mean, for me to do OMAD, if I was trying to gain muscle and bulk up, so to speak, I'd be eating way too much food to eat in one meal. I could do it, but I wouldn't feel great after, so it's not practical. You also made a good point as well about the supplements. I mean, you're talking to someone here that used to manage one of the best health food supplements in my country.
Yeah.
Um, the shops, and I actually probably sold hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of supplements. And I'm looking back now thinking, God, if I could have helped more people if I told them about this diet. However, I had a bit of a conflict of interest because I was managing a vegan health food shop.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
couldn't,
wow.
you
What
got
a
to earn a
change.
living somehow. But what I'd say
Yeah.
is like there were very few supplements that I found people would repeatedly buy that found useful. Most of these herbal extracts didn't really do much. They didn't really elevate anything more than just a proper diet. There's a few sort of vitamins and minerals here and there, but outside of that, I wasn't seeing any real benefit. There weren't many repeat customers, which is what would suggest to me it's a good product or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What were you taking in the past? I mean, are you now on a point where you're not taking any supplements at all?
Yeah. In the past, I tried everything. I mean, there's always, every 6 months to a year, there's a new bodybuilder or some sports figure that endorses this magic supplement that's gonna, you're gonna just like you're taking steroids basically, so they're all natural. And I tried HMB. I mean, that was going to be the thing. The next big thing was HMB. I mean, branched chain aminos. You name it. If there was an amino acid, they said that there was this research, and the research is so flimsy on almost all of this. We're talking about less than a dozen people, and almost no controls whatsoever. And so, and then you just have the placebo effect. I mean, and you can tell somebody this is going to do something, and if they believe it, they're going to get a positive effect more than likely. It may be short term, but they will get a positive effect. Now, I'm pretty agnostic on almost all supplements. I mean, I think there probably are some that may do some good, but somebody, and I don't know who said this. I hate repeating something. I'm not remember who said it, but I agree with it. They said that plant materials are more like the operation system of, say, Mac versus Microsoft. It's
I
a
think that
whole
was
different
me.
operating system. Was that you that said it? I knew it was some
Yeah,
genius that said it.
I've said it quite a few times. I
Yeah.
actually said it quite a few years ago. but not an online sort of thing. But yeah, we're a different operating system.
Yes. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's true. So, I mean, and some of these studies, I mean, and you know this, they're rodent studies or they're, animal studies, and that doesn't always correlate. Most times it doesn't correlate. I mean, you'll see something like glutathione can, you know, quadruple the life of mice and everything. Well, obviously that's not going to work in humans. And you're looking at so many different things. I mean, they'll use because of the short lifespan of like a fruit fly or something and everything, and they try to replicate this in humans. But I mean, like maybe creatine, that's maybe one of the few that probably has some um, proof behind it. I don't really think it makes much difference in strength. I think it may make more for hypertrophy, and I think a lot of that is just water volume. So that may be one. I know some people like branched chain aminos, and I guess there's probably some evidence on that. Quite honestly, I have tried pretty much every supplement out there before carnivore and after, and I can't tell any difference. It's kind of like I don't want to get off on a tangent, but it's kind of like organ meats. I mean, I just eat muscle meats, and
Mm.
occasionally, if I'm hungry or craving, I should say craving, and I'm at a place because my wife didn't allow any organ meats to be made in our house, like
Yeah.
liver. So I don't have any liver here, but I hardly ever crave it. But if we're out somewhere and they have beef liver, I may eat a little bit of it. I have used beef liver powder, and I've done it very consistently for maybe 6 months at a time. I can't tell any difference. I mean, I've done some organ supplements. I can't tell any difference when I take it or when I don't take it. And then you have other people say, "Oh, it makes all the difference," and that may be true. I'm not saying they're lying. I don't believe they are. So I think everybody's DNA makes a big part of that. My carnivore way of eating is almost all beef, salt, only water, beef broth, bone broth of some sort. And I do eat eggs. At first, I couldn't eat eggs, so maybe that's fine. I know, recently I know Michaela Peterson thought she was having or showing she's anemic, but just a lion diet. And I know others that have done that and had no trouble. But there's also genetic factors. I mean, you can have so many different MTHFR. You can have all these different things that can be a genetic predisposition. And I mean, I don't know exactly what else going on there. So there's a lot of different things that come into play with
Mm.
supplements and the way we're eating, whether we need them or we don't need them. I think the jury is still out on that.
Yeah, I think there's a case for some supplements when you're transitioning to the carnivore diet.
Oh,
Um,
I agree with that,
your
100%.
your diet is generally going to be the average carnivore. I mean, if we look at what
Yeah.
everyone's doing nowadays, it's essentially beef, perhaps eggs, perhaps dairy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
perhaps
Yeah.
fish. It's nothing out of the ordinary. You're going to be someone that's either going to need all of those, or some of those, or just the beef. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
thrive in somewhere around that range. I think
Yeah.
the the dogmatism of just doing one diet for everyone isn't. I don't think it's right.
No, I don't
Yeah,
either.
yeah. Also about the supplements as well. Like I've tried pretty much every supplement you could think of, providing it's a male sort of or unisex sort of
Yes.
supplement.
Yeah.
In every dose near enough, and I can say not many of them do much at all.
No.
Um, some vitamins help, some minerals help, but what I've noticed now is I'm not using much of anything in my diet. I use supplemental
Yeah.
taurine sometimes, creatine
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. Sometimes use a B complex as well. But outside of that, those are all just things I'm using based on my genetic factors. They're not something I'm
Yeah.
saying to people to add really. Vitamin D as well because I live in sunny England, which is forecast to always be hell. But yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
much it for me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's just like I said, there's different conditions and everything uh, that predisposition. And if you're coming into carnivore new, you may have some transitional things that you need. You may need some enzymes. You may need different things like that. Magnesium. You may need some minerals, especially as you transition. I think as you go longer, and probably you need less and less of that. And I look at more of the supplements, hopefully the good ones, more as a natural medicine. Now, I have been a lifelong insomniac, and I'd like to say, hey, I went carnivore and boom, I can sleep 8 hours a night, perfect sleep. That didn't happen. I mean, my sleep has gotten much better, but I will still, turn to some natural supplements to help me sleep. I don't like taking those, But if I have to, I will. I'll take, a valerian or, melatonin has never really done me any good. But there's some sorts of different things that will help me to sleep a little better. There's some things that will, L-tryptophan, theanine, that will help you, be a little more calm. And so, I mean, there's things like that I think that are good, but I just don't think we can put one category. They're all bad or they're all great. There's a gray area there too.
Yeah, I'm pretty much for the same mind. And the thing that's interesting I find about the carnivore community is that originally it started as just do the World Carnivore Month, go on the carnivore diet, and this is going to happen, and you're going to feel great.
Yes, yes.
But I think that is a bit. I'm not sure what the word is without offending a lot of people, but it's a bit daft because there's lots of other factors which affect your health besides diet.
Absolutely. And on my group, Mark's Health and Nutritional page on Facebook, we're not a big group. We're 3,500 or so. And I could be a lot bigger, but I don't want to come over there and think everything's all rainbow, lollipops, and unicorns and all that. I'm very honest. I mean, I had a condition. I have a very bad condition with my eyes, and it was diagnosed. I was like, well, it's because of the carnivore diet. Well, I hate to say this, guys. It was diagnosed in 2004, so it was 10 years before I even did that. But I have a form of glaucoma, very hard to treat glaucoma, and this form can go very rapidly. Mine has been stable for well over 6 years now. I have had issues, and that even goes back to my training. I had to modify my training, and this is 2020 in February, March. I'd have 3 emergency surgeries, or I would have went blind. I had major bleeds in both eyes. And so, I'd like to come on and say, I went carnivore and my glaucoma is cured. I went carnivore, my insomnia is cured. I'm very honest. This isn't a magic thing. It isn't like you go carnivore and you're going to live to be 180 and you're going to be jacked, all your life. There's still things that happen. And I just had a friend that has been carnivore since 2018 and a half. And she had something, pretty devastating happen to her. And it wasn't diet related. It was more in genetics, but I think she's going to make a full recovery. But she had something very devastating, and people don't want to hear that. They want to. I mean, the best person to fool Jonathan is Jonathan. The best person to fool Mark is Mark. And we like to believe our own hype, and we like to believe all that. And that's not me. I'm going to be honest. And I think we kind of run into that, and sometimes that's not popular to say, and it's not popular to say, okay, I have to be 100% totally strict on mine. I mean, I can't hardly have any variance in my way of eating, or my autoimmune issues kick my butt. If you don't have autoimmune issues, you probably could be 70% carnivore and be just fine. So that's not necessarily the most popular thing to say, but it's the truth in my opinion. That's everybody's going to be a little different on that.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, I was reading some research today on autism and oxalates. Now, I knew there's probably some links somewhere, but I actually read some links, and it did strongly suggest that my autistic traits could be because of having a high oxalate diet. I think that is likely to be true. I know the plants I had in my diet that I've now taken away have actually improved my symptoms. So I'm feeling better in spite of not having these healthy phytonutrients and adaptogens sort of thing. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that is so many cases when we remove the offending toxins, and what bothers you may not bother me, and vice versa. Obviously, if you had the autoimmune issues that I have, you would have to be very strict on spices and stuff. And I'm sure that's not the case for you. So I think that's why you shouldn't replicate something from somebody that is not your genetic clone. I mean, I think we can take inferences from people, but it's probably not a one size fits all. Maybe a one size fits most would be a better way of putting it.
Yeah, I think that's sensible. I mean, what you're saying here doesn't sound bad or controversial. It sounds like probably, the average person is going to fit in a certain bracket. Then there's going to be people like yourself or other people that are perhaps more healthy than me that don't need to do all these things. They can eat fruit and probably not die. So
exactly. That's exactly right. And I mean, now with my clients, I mean, I'm honest with them about it. The ones that I have had get the absolute best results, I'm talking about just more in fitness and in physique, has always been the ones that have been super, super strict in their way of eating and in a carnivore way. But I've had clients that have not been carnivore, not even keto, that have got great results too. I think the work is much harder for them. I mean, they're on, myfitnesspal, and they're tracking every little thing. They're doing this and that, and doing a lot of extra work. Where I have, others that don't do any of that. They eat more just like I do, and they get phenomenal results. So I don't think you have to do that. It just may be what is more convenient, or what you prefer to do. And some people, you have abstainers, you have moderators, and I can totally abstain from something, no problems. And you have other people, they can't do that. And so they have to. It's just different things. I can moderate or abstain, but you have some that cannot. If they even see a piece of cake, they're going to eat the whole thing. And I mean, if I wanted to have a piece of it, I'd probably be fine. I mean, it probably wouldn't bother me. I'm not craving it. I don't crave sugars. I just seem to have, beef. But that's not everybody. So you have to make allowances for each people's psychology, not just their physiology too.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I mean, anyone can have a perfect diet biologically, but how they're going to apply that, and if they're going to apply that, it's going to be very different from one person to the next.
Yes.
You brought up a good point actually about MyFitnessPal, Chronometer, all these like nutrition tracking apps. I do that, but I've probably got quite major OCD. So I quite like
See,
doing
that's
that.
me. That's why I don't do it. I can't do it. I am majorly OCD. Yeah.
Yeah, I only do it out of interest just to see what's happening. It's not something that I
Yeah.
feel I do, and if I do it wrong, I'm going to feel bad. It's more just out of analytical interest, sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Now I had a similar experience to you. I had a client that asked me about the chronometer not fitting in all the micronutrients, and I asked them like, "How do you know? How does your body know that you need X amount of vitamin C, X amount of calcium, potassium, magnesium each day? What's your body been telling you in the middle of the night, sort of thing, like in your dreams?" And it didn't make
Yeah.
sense to
Exactly.
me. Have you had that as well?
No. Yeah. Exactly.
Mm.
And I mean, I used to track every micronutrient that went in my body. I mean, I tracked everything. I mean, you name it, I tracked my, you know, body fat percentage to every day, did all this stuff. And it just gets to be analysis paralysis, and it creates stress and stuff. So I had to kind of free myself from that. I mean, I still do some tracking and stuff, but very little. It got to be the point where I would spend, 2 hours of the day just going over numbers for no reason. There was absolutely no reason. That's one thing I like, the minimalistic effect of carnivore. It's so freeing for me. It was just very freeing, and I got away from everything I had been doing for decades, and I really enjoy the not having to worry about that, and plus the free time.
Yeah, that's a good point. And just so no one takes this out of context, because I've had that a lot in my recent videos. Mark's not saying that no one should track their intake.
No,
There are some people that have to because of the way that their personality is,
exactly.
um, how much they can eat. You can say to someone, eat to satiety, and they will eat the whole fridge. So we're
It
not
sure
saying
will.
that. We're just saying eventually you might get to a point where you do not any longer have to track.
Yes, and you have to be metabolically healthy. I mean, I I'm metabolically healthy at least now, and I know what to eat. I know when to eat, and I know when to stop eating. I mean, I can listen to those cues. But if you're not metabolically healthy, you have food addictions. Your body, you can't say, well, just listen to your body. I know I have done that in the past. Well, just listen to your body. Well, that's not good advice. Okay, well, I did what you said, and I ate the whole refrigerator. And you can't do that. That doesn't work for everybody. And again, I think sometimes we try to separate the psychology from the physiology, and we can't do that. It's so connected. And I always say this uh, to so many of my clients is that do not let the perfect destroy the good. And sometimes we try to do that. We try to be perfect in everything, and it destroys our good qualities that we need to be doing and reinforcing.
I love that, Mark. I like your ideas and I like your approach towards this whole thing. It's very sensible and it's really going to invite a lot more other people into the diet because you're not being dogmatic. You're not telling people just eat one food. You're saying sensible things, which I really like. So we're going to wrap this up in a second, but what I'm going to do is link Mark's Facebook group below, perhaps his Instagram as well. Then all we've got to do is click on that, follow, subscribe, like his channel, anything like that, and all that sort of good
Sure.
stuff. Well, thanks very much, Mark. Cheers.
Well, I've enjoyed it. Yes, love to come back again. I love watching all your content, and I've learned so much from you. You do a great job, Jonathan. Really appreciate you.